most of the CEOs and chairs we have talked as part of the series are in a sector which is crowded. They have many players, and hence the question of sustainability is a bigger one, and they're fighting for every dollar. And then if you are the only provider in W and there are 8 pan-Australia, what's the sectoral challenges on sustainability and funding?
So this question, I just went, yes, I have much to say about this. While we're the only torture and trauma provider, some of the other services we do are part of the multicultural sector, some are part of mental health sector. And I think what's happened, the way funding is rolled out by government, we are pitted against one another. So what we've lost is the ability to collaborate. Like there's actual fear of collaboration. And like before we started, I don't know everything and I don't pretend to know everything, but I work really hard on making sure I've got solid networks and connections and people who can rely on me with things I know and people I can phone on and get support for what they have expertise in. And what's happened as a result of the way funding is rolled out is that we don't do that very well anymore. And in fact, it's become quite territorial. It's turf war. This is mine, you can't have it. And there's examples of things like family domestic violence where, you know, I was told that only one particular provider should be working in that space, no one else, where every single one of us has to deal with this as part of our work. So I think this issue of sustainability, we probably would get better in multicultural services. We would get better outcomes if we had a stronger united voice and we were working better in a collaborative sense.
So there's a bit it's crowded within the multicultural space, that's what you're saying? Yeah,
it's and look, I'm sure people will get angry with me, but that is having come from disability sector, which experienced a not dissimilar thing because of NDIS, knowing what that sector was like before NDIS, and you could pick up the phone and just work in partnership with people, we're losing something by the way funding is pitting us against one another. It's actually fundamentally damaged our working relationships. And then I'm and maybe this is because I haven't come from a business background, I've come from a human rights kind of space.
Yeah.
I had a manager when I first started in disability who said your job is to do yourself out of a job. So this challenge of sustainability, it's one that sometimes I'm all for it. We have budgets, we follow programs, but ultimately it's not about the organisation still being here in 50 years' time. If it's needed, yes, but wouldn't it be amazing if we didn't need to have a service like the one Asetts provides because the world is actually behaving nicely to each other and people aren't being tortured and traumatised, and our humanitarian programs work the way they should and people aren't detained, So I feel there's this balancing act that happens where my job is to make sure the organisation is safe and sustainable and viable and all those other wonderful words. But in the back of my head, if our clients don't need us, then they don't need us. And so there's also that other tangent of, if things were working the way we'd like them to, then
they wouldn't need us.
They wouldn't need us.
Yeah, I think that's very, very deep and insightful on that front. Not many CEOs will talk on that language to, reaching to a space that they don't need them anymore or the organization is not required.
And I can't see that realistically. Even in COVID, we expected that with COVID, there'd be ceasefires and people would behave nicely to one another across the world. And we've seen a massive increase. The UNHCR has identified that it's gone from 1 in 152 people around the planet is forcibly displaced to 1 in 95. And that's actually a pretty big jump. There's a lot of people who are living in really dangerous situations right now.